here with Sean from Ampere. Sean, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. By the way, thank you for having me, Yvette. Sean Varley, I'm the Chief Evangelist for Ampere Computing. I've been with Ampere for 7 years now, so quite a long time.
In ShapeBlue, we're doing these videos about discussing infrastructure trends and the market, and in general, what IT infrastructure, where is it going and how is it changing. So Sean, can you share with us what do you see on the public cloud provider space and in general here at CloudFest?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been, of course, the public cloud has been our sort of focus segment since really the inception of the company. We started with hyperscalers. Of course, Oracle is one of our largest customers, and the hyperscalers have kind of their own way of doing things, right? But nowadays, with with the CloudFest crowd, these are European providers, and they tend to be more sovereign, regional, localized, and they're also catering to the local market. We've had the good fortune to have a really good relationship with many of these providers. My perspective is right now that the cloud is changing pretty radically, especially with AI coming in, really kind of shifting the focus to sovereign services and data protection, and that is starting to take kind of a more competitive view against the global hyperscalers. And you're starting to see repatriation efforts and things like that. So my impression is that a lot of the local regional vendors are really kind of working to get that their infrastructure capabilities up to be prepared to deliver services even in AI, for this new generation of digital services.
So obviously the cloud market is changing a lot. It's not what it was like 10 years ago, having different cloud providers. You mentioned also about hyperscalers and that now companies are trying to repatriate and building sovereign clouds. What do you think is the core infrastructure, the foundation of these sovereign clouds, what it should be? Should companies and sovereign cloud builders think more about proprietary vendors or using open source technologies, or there is a balance between both of them?
Open source to me is pervasive, right? It can be used on all infrastructures, and it is really a leveling technology. But what I see now is that there is a bit of a gold rush to get to some sort of differentiated stack for being able to deliver AI services, and some of the infrastructure out there is proprietary to begin with when it comes out because it's so new, and then the open source sort of takes more time to come in, and they use this term a lot, democratize kind of the access, right? But that stuff will happen. It usually happens over time.
And at ShapeBlue, we have that vision that open source is something which could bring reliability in the long term because it's a technology which is led by community. It's not led by a single vendor or single roadmap. In which use cases you think it makes more sense to put the open source virtualization and cloud management, and in which cases you think companies should consider more working with a vendor?
Yeah, the open source, so especially in cloud services, right? I think open source has a huge market share now, right? So virtual services, or even some of the bare metal services now are being enabled by substantially open source technology, right? And I think that trend is continuing. So companies such as CloudStack, right, or products such as CloudStack are in that same vein. Right, all of those types of technologies are important underpinnings of what's required to do what we would call elastic scalable services. Right, this is technology that's been developed over many years. Started in the public cloud where you could have these very elastic services, and now it's evolved into containers and all the Kubernetes-enabled infrastructure. And this is what we used to call also cloud native code, right? And that stuff runs very natively also on CPUs. It's very hard actually to get that type of technology to run on proprietary GPU infrastructure because the GPU infrastructure is just more fixed in its function, right? It does one thing and it does it well, which is why it's there. But it's also very hard then to have an elastic service really develop around that sort of less flexible infrastructure.
And where do you think the market is going? So it was first the virtualization, then there was a big hype around containers, then around the cloud and building your own cloud. What do you think could be the next trend?
Well, I think what we see now is everything getting delivered as a service, right? Even autonomous vehicles, for example, right now. You are starting to get services delivered automatically or maybe according to your preferences. And all of that kind of gets downloaded, right, through networking connections. And all of that is kind of enabled by these core technologies. It's all of them together. It's containers, it's virtualization, it's orchestration, it's sort of security. Security is huge in all of that, right? Because you don't necessarily, if I'm in an autonomous vehicle, I don't want some pirated or some nefarious program to be downloaded automatically into my autonomous vehicle, right? So all of these technologies are now, that have been built for decades, are starting to kind of converge on new markets that are enabled by AI.
Yeah. We also have a huge use case around AI with the CloudStack project. So there are many companies which are preparing their infrastructure based on open source so that they can handle some AI models on it. Could you share your side vision from a side perspective around the CloudStack project? How do you see it evolving and what do you think its potential?
Yeah, I mean, we've been involved with you guys, kind of fundamentally to get it running on the ARM architecture, which has been a very fruitful relationship, right? Anytime you see a new project, especially an open source project, coming out on a new architecture, there's always a lot of foundational work that has to get done. And we've been very fortunate to work with you guys on getting that working for the ARM architecture. But now that a lot of that sort of lifting is done, now it can kind of really expand, right? And the availability of ARM processors in the cloud is very pervasive now, everywhere from the hyperscalers, Amazon with Graviton, Ampere with bespoke infrastructure for enterprises that you can get off the open market, or even in the Oracle Cloud, for example. And now with ARM launching the new AGI processors, all of that is just market expansion, right? So I think that we've done a lot of the foundational work, and I see the opportunity now as in expanding in these new use cases. And the CloudStack project is good because it's a tried and true product, right? It's been around for quite some time, and I think the pedigree of the open source licensing through the Apache projects and all of that kind of thing is also very trusted, right?
Yeah.
So I think that gives people a lot of confidence in being able to deploy something like that.
Yeah, and maybe as a summary, if you can name, let's say, 3 use cases where you think that CloudStack and Ampere ARM equipment are making a good use case and are bringing mostly benefits? Yeah,
well, the use cases are pretty obvious, right? So you have the public cloud use case, right, where the virtual services are being underpinned, by cost-effective, very efficient hardware in Ampere with a very efficient virtualization service provided by something like CloudStack. That's be virtual services. I'm renting machines, public cloud, pretty obvious use case. But now what we see happening, especially with AI coming back, is this on-premise, need for on-premise services, right? And that's kind of coming in from data privacy, data sovereignty. There has been a reoccurrence or a resurgence of what I would call private services and the interest in having that run on site. So now that combination of private cloud is another good use case for the combination of our products, right? And if that's combined with AI, which is maybe the third use case here, that's even better, right? Because AI is a very compute-intensive application, so it needs a lot of virtual machines, a lot of containers, all of those sorts of things, and that's exactly what you guys serve up.
I think that many companies will actually try to build their own infrastructure with their own choice of technology so that they can ensure it's something which is future-proofed, and moreover it's fitting better their demand and their needs and scalability needs, rather than just go to a few hyperscalers and get something like a standard offering. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think that access to technology sometimes is a barrier to adoption, right? Actually, many times it is. What I think is really cool is that, the Apache CloudStack being a trusted name, very, very accessible, right? And the models for being able to adopt that are very easy, for consumption, right? And I think that those sorts of things just enable all of the use cases to become better.
Yeah, agree. Thank you very much, Sean.
Yes, you're welcome.